Welcome the anointed ones. When you curse the chosen, you don't cast a spell. You sign your own spiritual eviction notice. Let that marinate, because somebody just found out the hard way. They thought they were summoning power, but what they really did was summon a permanent curse, one that has now wrapped itself around their life like spiritual barbed wire. And here's the part they really didn't see coming. You know, and now they know that you know, and it's eating them alive. See, witchcraft isn't just candles and whispers in the dark. It's a direct assault on divine order, especially when it's aimed at someone like you, a chosen one. And what most people don't realize is this. When you target a soul that was divinely sealed before birth, you don't just get caught, you get sentenced. Here's a fact. In ancient African and Middle Eastern traditions, curses and spells cast on spiritually anointed individuals were believed to reverse by divine design. You couldn't touch the sacred and not suffer. That law hasn't changed. The consequences just look more modern. Relationships collapse, minds unravel, finances dry up, and sleep, forget it. They're being haunted by their own rituals. They tried to take your crown with candles and incantations. Now they're battling the demons they called forth. And those demons are asking, where's our payment? So sit tight, because in this video, we're about to expose why their life is cursed forever, why their panic is real, and how the universe, or rather the Most High, ensures that the chosen never have to clap back. Because heaven has a law for this. Tamper with divine order and prepare for divine judgment. And if you're wondering how it got this bad, don't worry. By the end of this, you'll realize they didn't just mess with you. They messed with a prophecy. Let's talk about it. Number 1. The curse was activated the moment they targeted a vessel of divine justice. They thought it was just a spell, a little ritual, some herbs, a few chants, maybe a candle or two. But what they didn't know is that the moment they targeted you, they triggered something ancient and irreversible. They didn't cast a spell, they pulled a spiritual fire alarm. And when heaven hears that alarm, judgment comes down fast and hard. You're not just another person walking around. You're a vessel of divine justice, a walking assignment. Your existence alone is sacred ground. You may not wear a crown on your head, but your soul carries contracts written before you ever arrived on this planet. You didn't choose this path, it chose you. And anyone who comes against it doesn't just come against you. They come against the very force that sent you. They thought they were operating in secret, playing with invisible powers that wouldn't bite back. But what they touched wasn't passive energy. They touched a sealed vessel, a soul under spiritual protection, a being that carries consequences with every breath. They thought they had authority. They didn't realize they were trespassing on divine property. And spiritual trespassing is no joke. It comes with a price tag they cannot afford. Now they're dealing with the fallout. Life unraveling, nothing working. Every door they force open slams in their face. They're losing sleep, losing peace, losing people. And they still don't fully understand. It wasn't the spell that cursed them. It was who they tried to curse. The consequence was embedded in the attempt itself. The spiritual realm recognizes divine contracts, even when people don't. So the moment they directed energy toward you, the system activated a countermeasure. This is why you didn't have to fight back. Why you didn't have to light candles, return to sender, or scream your pain, because justice was already moving. The punishment didn't need your hands. It only needed your presence. You didn't have to curse them. Heaven did. Not out of vengeance, but because the system is self-correcting. And you, whether you realize it or not, are part of that system. They didn't know who they were dealing with, but now they know, and it's killing them on the inside, because deep down they feel it. The curse they created wasn't your destruction, it was their own. Number 2, their rituals weren't just rejected, they were reflected. They thought what they sent your way would work. They fully believed the ritual would hit you like a bullet, silent, invisible, and damaging. What they didn't know is that you were born with a spiritual return-to-sender system that doesn't just cancel attacks, it reflects them. Their spell didn't vanish into thin air. It bounced off you and went straight back to the origin, not just once, with force, with amplification. And now, it's working against them. day by day, moment by moment. This is what they didn't factor in. Spiritual law isn't biased, but it is exact. It doesn't care how long someone's been doing witchcraft or how confident they are in their dark knowledge. It only cares about alignment. And when someone sends darkness towards someone who's in alignment with divine truth, especially someone chosen, marked, and protected, the law reacts automatically. The energy has to go somewhere, and when it can't penetrate you, it returns to sender, like a boomerang sharpened by righteousness. Now their life is falling apart and they think it's random. But deep down, they're starting to connect the dots. They know what they did. They remember every chant, every name spoken, every intention behind the attack. They also remember how smug they felt when they did it. But they weren't just sending out energy. They were signing a spiritual contract. And that contract came with fine print. If undeliverable, this curse will be reabsorbed by the sender with interest. That's why they're seeing shadows now. That's why relationships are breaking, finances drying up, sickness creeping in, peace evaporating. The very things they tried to unleash on you are now following them. Not because you retaliated, but because the system demanded balance. You were too protected, too aligned, too sealed in light for their darkness to land, so it boomeranged with force, and now it's wrapped around them like chains. This is what makes them panic even more. They know you didn't do anything to them. You didn't clap back. You didn't light a candle, you didn't even speak on it, but things in their life started collapsing anyway. That's what haunts them. It wasn't a battle, it was a revelation. The energy they sent wasn't blocked, it was reflected, and now they're living inside the echo. Number 3. The unseen tribunal has already judged them. The judgment didn't start when you found out what they did, it started the moment they did it. Long before you were aware of the betrayal, the spell, the ritual, divine eyes were already watching. Spiritual law doesn't need human approval or public exposure to move. It only needs violation. And once that violation happens, the tribunal in the unseen realm begins its process. The evidence doesn't get collected later. It's recorded instantly. Every word, every intention, every dark thought. They may have fooled people down here, but up there, they were already caught. This is why their life is in slow collapse. They're not just having a streak of bad luck. They're living out a verdict. And the crazy part is, they haven't even reached the full sentencing yet. What they're experiencing now is the early tremors. The spiritual realm doesn't just punish out of vengeance. It punishes based on weight. The heavier the attack, the heavier the consequence. And when you mess with someone who's chosen, someone sent with a divine assignment, you activate a deeper level of judgment. They didn't realize that touching you spiritually was like walking into a courtroom mid-trial and trying to tamper with evidence. It's not just wrong. It's criminal, and they committed the crime in front of the highest authority. So now they're dealing with a spiritual sentence that has already been handed down. You might still be recovering, still confused, still processing, but the realm of justice is way ahead of you. That's why they're spiraling. They can't pray their way out of it now. They can't manipulate energy to erase what they did. The ruling has been set and the punishment is unfolding in phases. They'll keep losing things they thought were secured. They'll watch people turn cold, resources dry up, and opportunities vanish. They'll feel doors close that once opened easily, all because they tried to curse someone who was already covered by divine law. The truth is, you never needed to defend yourself. You were already defended. You never needed to retaliate. You were already avenged. The sentence wasn't delayed. It was divine. And the courtroom that judged them, it wasn't made by man. It was built by the Most High. And once that courtroom delivers a verdict, not even witchcraft can override it. Number 4. Their guilt has turned into a spiritual disease. They were confident when they did it. Bold, cold, calculated. They performed their rituals, whispered your name, and walked away as if nothing ever happened. They thought you'd never find out. They were banking on your silence, your innocence, your ignorance. But what they didn't expect was that moment your spirit remembered, not just mentally, but energetically. Your awareness shifted, your intuition sharpened, and even without evidence you knew, and that knowing changed everything. You didn't have to confront them. You didn't have to expose them. The moment your energy realigned and rejected what was done to you, something inside of them began to rot. Guilt has a strange way of operating. It doesn't always scream, it eats. Slowly, quietly, relentlessly. And when it has nowhere else to go, it begins to infect the very soul that birthed the wrong. That's what's happening to them now. Their body is showing signs, mysterious health issues, restlessness, nervousness around you, unexplained emotional breakdowns. They're getting more reactive, more paranoid, more unstable, and people around them are noticing. Their relationships are strained. The lies they told to cover their spiritual actions are unraveling. The people they once confided in are backing away. The guilt they buried so deeply is surfacing, and now it's leaking into every area of their life. You haven't said a word, but your silence is deafening to them now. Not because it's empty, but because it's full of knowing. They feel it every time you walk into a room, every time you look at them, every time you smile without effort. You became a mirror they can't run from. Their soul knows that you know, and the weight of that unspoken truth is suffocating them more than any external punishment ever could. You don't need to wish them harm. You don't need to plan revenge. Their own conscience is serving them every day. It's not karma they fear, it's you, your presence, your peace, your elevation. Because in your growth, their guilt grows louder. In your healing, their sickness worsens. And in your glow, their shadows stretch further. They thought they cursed you, but in reality they cursed themselves. And now their soul is corroding under the weight of guilt that will not let them breathe. Number 5. They used magic to steal your light, and ended up cursing their own lineage. This wasn't just envy. It was a full-blown attempt at spiritual theft. They didn't just dislike you. They wanted to be you. They wanted your essence, your glow, your favor. So they used dark arts to try to siphon what you carry, to extract your energy like it was up for grabs. They tried to bind your blessings, copy your gifts, hijack your purpose, thinking they could replicate what was divinely assigned to you. But what they touched wasn't just energy, it was an inheritance from heaven. And spiritual inheritances are heavily guarded. They crossed a line they can't uncross. Because when you tamper with what's chosen, you don't just risk your own soul. You risk the future of everyone attached to your bloodline. That's how serious it is. The moment they performed that ritual, the curse didn't just fall on them, it landed on their lineage. And now the very children they love, the generations they hope to bless, are walking under a cloud they don't even understand. All because someone thought they could steal from a vessel who was sealed by divine authority. Heaven doesn't just respond with defense, it responds with containment. So now, what they unleashed can't spread outward. It's been locked into their family line until repentance and spiritual cleansing break it. That means their children may grow up fighting invisible battles, carrying burdens that don't belong to them, suffering consequences they didn't cause. Cycles of loss, delay, and confusion, not from life, but from a curse their parent or grandparent triggered by tampering with you. They tried to manipulate your spiritual DNA, and now their own legacy is infected. And the terrifying part is they know something's off, but they don't always connect it to the spell they cast or the energy they manipulated. They'll blame the economy, bad luck, or strange coincidences. But the truth is deeper. The curse didn't miss its target. It returned to its origin and claimed ownership of everything tied to it. You didn't just survive the attack. You became a revelation. Your protection exposed their desperation. And now their whole bloodline is being forced to face a reality that can't be undone by words or wishes. They used magic to steal your light and handed their descendants a spiritual debt they weren't built to carry. Number 6. You're no longer silent, and that's their worst nightmare. Your silence used to work in their favor. It gave them room to move, space to scheme, and a false sense of control. They mistook your stillness for submission. They thought they had you where they wanted you, unaware that silence is not the same as surrender. But now, everything has changed. You didn't make an announcement. You didn't call them out or create a scene. But your energy did, and that's what's rattling them to the core. Something in you shifted. Your spirit no longer tolerates their presence. Your aura no longer welcomes their manipulation. They can't access your emotional frequency anymore, and it's driving them insane. You stopped engaging, stopped explaining, stopped apologizing for seeing through their mask. That withdrawal, it was a spiritual earthquake, and now the ground beneath their ego is cracking. What they don't understand is that when a chosen one detaches, truly detaches, the atmosphere around them changes. The energy that once kept the connection alive goes cold, and with that cold comes clarity. Your absence is louder than your words ever were, and it's echoing in their mind day and night. They're unraveling not because you're fighting them, but because you're not. You're not reacting. You're not checking in. You're not validating their drama. And that's tormenting them far more than any confrontation would. People like this depend on emotional access to feed off your light, your peace, your empathy. Now that you've pulled back, they're starving, and desperate people make chaotic decisions. That's why they're exposing themselves in public, acting out, saying too much, looking unhinged. The pressure of your indifference is suffocating them. They thought they were in control of your voice, your power, your story. But now they realize you were never powerless. You were simply watching. And now that your energy has shifted, they know you've awakened. They know you see them, and even if you never utter a word, they feel the verdict in your presence. This is why they're panicking. Because deep down, they understand the danger wasn't in your retaliation. It was in your revelation. You know who they are now, and you left them right where they belong, on the outside. And nothing terrifies them more than being locked out of the light they tried to own. Number 7, they never expected their witchcraft to unlock your prophetic power. They thought the spell would silence you, shut down your gifts, dim your light, strip you of clarity, strength, and connection to Source. What they didn't count on was that the very thing they used to bury you would activate something ancient inside you. Instead of destroying you, their witchcraft backfired and sparked a prophetic awakening. They tried to send confusion, but all it did was burn off the fog. They didn't bind your power, they unlocked it. What they triggered wasn't weakness, it was memory. Deep, spiritual memory. The kind that lives in your bones, your dreams, your intuition. Your third eye didn't just open, it remembered. You started seeing through people without needing proof. You sensed their moves before they made them. You saw the strings behind their smiles, the spirits behind their energy, and the real motives behind their actions. And this new level of vision terrified them. They can feel it now, that knowing you walk with, that eerie calm in your presence. You no longer react the way you used to, because you already saw it coming. That's what's shaking them. You carry a prophetic frequency now. A sense of timing, alignment, and divine intelligence that you didn't learn from books. It was unlocked by the very ones who tried to destroy you. Their witchcraft sent you into a spiritual initiation they didn't understand. They meant to trap you in fear. Instead, you broke out into revelation, and that's the cruel irony they're dealing with now. The curse they sent was the tool heaven used to advance your calling. They helped birth the very version of you they feared most, the awakened one. The one who remembers why they were sent here. Now everything about you feels different. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't need approval. You move with purpose, with precision, with power, and it's not arrogance. It's alignment. You're not guessing anymore. You know. You were chosen before the attack, but the attack made sure you'd never forget it again. That's what's killing them. You were supposed to be broken. But instead you came out of that fire with vision in your eyes, weight in your words, and divine timing on your side. You weren't just born, you were sent. And now that you know it, so do they. Number 8. Their own altar has become a prison. They thought they were in control, that they could summon spirits, make offerings, and bend supernatural forces to their will like puppets on strings. They thought power came cheap, just a ritual here, a chant there, maybe a drop of blood or a lock of hair. But what they didn't realize is that the spirits they called on don't work for free. Every altar they built, every dark invocation they whispered, was a contract, and those contracts are now due. At first they felt powerful. Things may have even worked in their favor. Doors opened, people moved, results showed up. But dark power always comes with hidden interest. It never gives without taking. And what it's taking now is their peace, their mental stability, their physical health, their control. The spirits they once commanded now command them. They've become slaves to the very forces they thought they were using. They can't sleep without something breathing down their neck. They can't focus without shadows creeping into the corner of their vision. Their emotions swing violently. They're agitated by peace and addicted to chaos. The altar they once bowed before for results has now become a prison cell, and there's no key. What they once called sacred has turned into a source of torment, and they can't walk away. Because walking away means breaking loyalty, and breaking loyalty means punishment. These spirits demand more than offerings now. They want full control, control over thoughts, actions, relationships, and the more your light rises, the more unstable they become. Because the spirits don't just hate you, they fear the influence you carry. So they're punishing the one who summoned them, blaming them for the failure. That's why the person who targeted you is unraveling. They're not just cursed, they're owned. They didn't know that spiritual power comes with chains if it's not anchored in truth. Now they're being dragged by forces they can't shut off, voices they can't silence, nightmares they can't outrun. The same altar they proudly knelt at has now become the place they dread most. Not because the spell failed, but because you didn't. Your protection revealed their weakness, and now their power is a prison with no exits. Number 9. Your energy became radioactive, and they're deteriorating from contact. They underestimated what was inside you. To them, you looked human, normal even. But what they didn't know is that your energy is encoded with divine resistance. Your very presence carries a spiritual voltage that's dangerous to anyone operating in darkness. They assumed you were weak because you were quiet. They thought they could handle you, manipulate your frequency, and get away with it. But the moment they made contact with your energy in the wrong way, they triggered a chain reaction they couldn't reverse. You're not just protected, you're spiritually radioactive. Your DNA, your aura, your essence is programmed to repel darkness automatically. You don't have to defend yourself with words or rituals. Your energy does it for you. And when they tried to tamper with it, bind it, or leech from it, your field responded like a divine security system. Not only did it block the attack, it started unraveling the person behind it. Now they're deteriorating and they don't know why. Their health is shaky, their mind unstable, their emotions in chaos. Everything they thought they had under control is slipping through their fingers. They're exhausted, paranoid, drained, and no matter what they do, no matter how many rituals they try, how many spiritual practitioners they run to, they can't shake what they triggered. Because this isn't just karma, it's fallout. Spiritual fallout is different. It lingers, it infects slowly. It spreads into every area of life because it wasn't just one act, it was an energetic collision. They came into contact with something holy while carrying something unclean. And now that energy is rejecting them, pushing them out, and dismantling their foundation. They thought you were the target. But in trying to break you, they exposed themselves to something they were never prepared for. The frequency you operate at isn't ordinary. It's a divine defense mechanism wrapped in flesh. It doesn't just block attacks. It purifies the source. And purification hurts when someone isn't ready for it. Now, they're trapped in a process they can't control. Their energy is glitching, their spirit is scrambling, and their life is reflecting that inner chaos. They touched you spiritually, and now they're paying for it physically, emotionally, and mentally. You didn't curse them, you didn't fight back, you didn't even flinch. Your field handled everything, and now they're learning the hard way. Not all light is soft, some light burns. Number 10. They played with spiritual laws like toys. Now they're living inside a wreckage. They treated spiritual laws like they were toys, tools to play with, something to bend, twist, and control for their own gain. They thought they could cut corners in the spirit realm, thought they could skip over alignment, authority, and accountability and still come out untouched. But spiritual laws don't play favorites. They don't care about intentions when intentions are drenched in ego, control, and jealousy. They only care about alignment, and when you're out of alignment, every move you make becomes a violation. Witchcraft isn't just lighting candles and chanting, it's circuitry, it's power. And power demands structure. Just like electricity requires wiring, grounding, and insulation, so does the spiritual realm. When you try to tap into supernatural forces without permission, without covering, without purpose, you create a surge. And that surge doesn't empower you. It fries you. That's exactly what's happening to them. They crossed wires that weren't meant for them, touched realms that didn't recognize their authority, invoked spirits that demanded more than they understood. And now the whole system is short-circuiting. Their life is flickering. 1 minute things look fine, the next it's chaos. Relationships unstable, finances spiraling, mental clarity gone. Nothing is grounding them anymore because the very force they tried to manipulate has turned against them. They were never licensed to access what they tried to control. They weren't sent, they weren't chosen, they weren't spiritually prepared, but they moved like they were. And now everything's backfiring. You can't fake spiritual rank, you can't steal divine energy and expect long-term success. What they touched was out of their range, and now they're paying for it in ways that can't be fixed by rituals or apologies. They didn't understand that spiritual laws don't care how desperate you are. Desperation without alignment still leads to destruction. And now, the destruction is internal and external. They're trapped inside the wreckage they created, wreckage built from arrogance, manipulation, and unauthorized access. They thought they could use witchcraft to manipulate outcomes. Instead, they shorted out their entire system. Their prayers aren't working. Their spells are collapsing. Their connections are dying because they touched what wasn't theirs to touch. And the spirit realm doesn't just deny access. It corrects violations with consequences. Number 11. You were their secret sacrifice, but heaven exposed the ritual. They never thought you'd find out. In their mind, the sacrifice was clean, quiet, and undetectable. They smiled in your face, hugged you like family, laughed with you like friends, all while secretly placing your name on altars meant to drain your light and feed their ambitions. You weren't just a target. You were the offering. Someone they believed could be spiritually traded for their own gain. And in their warped mind, it made sense. They thought your favor, your energy, your destiny was a resource to be harvested, not honored. But what they didn't realize is that heaven sees everything. The divine doesn't need cameras or microphones. It sees motives, it sees intentions, it sees the unspoken agreements made in the dark. Every time they uttered your name over a ritual, every drop of blood, every chant, every sigil drawn, it was all documented, spiritually recorded in full. And while they were fooling people here on earth, they were being exposed in the courts of heaven. Now the exposure is unfolding in layers. People are starting to see through them. The charm doesn't work anymore. The persona they crafted is crumbling. They're saying the right things, but the energy is off. Their mask is slipping, and the public is catching glimpses of what was hidden all along. What they once controlled with manipulation and spiritual deceit is now slipping through their fingers. But even worse is the internal unraveling. The shame they thought they buried is bubbling up. Their peace is gone. Their dreams are disturbed. Their mind is fractured. Their spirit knows what's coming. Because exposure isn't just about people knowing. It's about truth being undeniable. And once divine truth shines, it's impossible to hide. You were never meant to be the sacrifice. You were the assignment, the one chosen to break patterns, shift atmospheres, and carry divine codes. That's why the ritual failed. That's why their spell didn't land. You were spiritually firewalled. What they tried to offer up was never theirs to give. And now, that theft is costing them their reputation, their relationships, and their rest. Heaven doesn't just protect the chosen, it vindicates them. And now, the ones who tried to bury you in silence are being buried in revelation. Publicly, spiritually, and worst of all for them, from the inside out. Number 12. The more they try to undo it, the worse it gets. They didn't think it would come to this. When they first cast the spell, it felt like control, power, a shortcut to outcomes they couldn't achieve on their own. But now, it's pure panic. Things are backfiring left and right. Life's unraveling faster than they can explain, and nothing makes sense anymore. So they've gone back to the same dark altars, the same rituals, the same spirits they once invoked with confidence. But this time, they're not commanding. They're begging. They're sweating through ceremonies, whispering apologies, offering anything they can, money, blood, more names, to fix what they started. But it's too late. Because something irreversible happened the moment you awakened. You didn't just survive the attack, you outgrew it. You shifted dimensions. Your elevation placed you outside the reach of their spells. You're not walking in their spiritual timeline anymore. You've ascended into divine flow, and that kind of access can't be reversed with panic spells or tearful incantations. The more they try to undo what they did, the more unstable their life becomes. Because now they're not just dealing with consequences, they're tampering with justice. The spell was already judged. The energy they unleashed has already been returned, the curse has already settled. So every time they try to manipulate the outcome or fix the curse, they're reactivating the energy they tried to bury. And with each attempt it grows stronger, heavier, more personal. This is the torment of the unrepentant, not the ones who feel remorse, but the ones who only regret getting caught in spiritual backlash. They're not sorry they hurt you, they're sorry it didn't work, and heaven knows the difference. That's why the curse keeps evolving, morphing, finding new ways to reflect what they did. Not to punish blindly, but to teach deeply. Because some lessons can't be escaped, they must be endured. What they don't understand is that your rise sealed their fate. You were never meant to stay beneath their attacks. You were meant to rise so high their energy couldn't even reach you anymore. And now, every frantic effort to reverse what they did is like throwing fuel on a fire they can no longer contain. They started something they can't finish. And now, they're locked in a cycle of spiritual torment, not because you cursed them, but because they wouldn't stop. Number 13. They thought spiritual attack was one-sided. Now they're being hunted. They genuinely believed they had the upper hand. To them, a spiritual attack was like a private hit job, silent, undetectable, and one-directional. They thought they could weaponize energy and aim it at you without consequence. But what they failed to realize is that energy is not loyal to intention. It's loyal to truth. And the truth is, you were never meant to be touched. You were marked, shielded, heaven-backed. So the moment they launched their spiritual assault, it didn't land on you. It boomeranged. Now the spirits they summoned are circling them, because spirits are like hungry wolves. They need a target, a host, a channel to complete the command. But when those spirits reached your field, they hit a divine firewall, a spiritual no-go zone, an anointed frequency they couldn't penetrate. So what happens when entities are invoked and left with no assignment to fulfill? They return, not empty-handed but angry, restless, and looking for the next available vessel. That vessel, the one who summoned them. That's why they're seeing shadows out the corner of their eye. That's why their sleep is broken, their heart races in stillness, and they feel watched when they're alone. The prey role they assigned to you has reversed, and now they're the hunted by their own hand, by their own ritual, by their own misguided arrogance. And it's not just sleepless nights. Their misfired energy is disrupting their peace, their relationships, even their physical health. Because when a spiritual attack goes wrong, it doesn't just dissipate, it reverses polarity. The intention becomes their prison, the spell becomes their sickness, and the very force they called upon is now devouring their sanity. This is what happens when people play God without divine permission. They wanted to manipulate spiritual laws while pretending they were above them. But the universe doesn't operate on ego. It operates on alignment. And you were aligned. That's why you didn't have to fight. That's why you stayed silent while the spirit realm fought for you. They thought they were dealing with someone unprotected. Now they know they invoked something far greater than you, and it's chasing them relentlessly. Because energy always completes its cycle. And in this case, the cycle came back to its origin. They started it. Now they can't stop what's hunting them. Number 14. You're not just protected. You're the trigger for divine consequence. They thought you were just another person, someone they could hex, curse, manipulate, or sabotage with no spiritual backlash. They didn't see the mark on your life. They didn't recognize the authority surrounding your name. But what they failed to understand is that you weren't just protected. You were positioned by divine order. You are a walking consequence for those who violate what is sacred. You are a trigger point in the spiritual realm. The moment someone crosses the line with you, they don't just pick a fight with you, they initiate judgment. There's a divine law that governs your existence, and it's not poetic or metaphorical, it's real. Touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm is not just scripture. It's a living frequency encoded into your destiny. When people come against you, it doesn't just bounce back because of karma. It returns because they violated a spiritual firewall that was never meant to be touched. That's why their curses don't dissolve. They stick, like spiritual tar, like something they can't wash off no matter how many rituals they perform or how many apologies they whisper into the wind. You're not untouchable because you're better. You're untouchable because your role in the divine order is non-negotiable. You were sent to disrupt darkness, to be a light in deeply corrupted systems and to expose hidden agendas. That means heaven has to respond immediately when you're under attack, because to delay would disrupt the entire chain of divine operations. Your pain doesn't go unnoticed. Your betrayal doesn't go unrecorded. Your tears don't fall to the ground. They fall into the hands of the Most High, who keeps receipts. The people who came for you thought you were ordinary. That's why they were careless. But now they're confused, stuck, haunted, or collapsing, and they can't even figure out why. It's because they triggered a law they didn't even believe in. They set off alarms in realms they thought were just fantasy. And now they're being dealt with. Not by you, but by the divine force that sent you. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to explain. Just keep walking in your calling. You're not just under protection. You are the reason the protection protocol even activated. They didn't know hurting you would summon heaven's wrath. But now, it's too late. They thought they were tampering with someone weak, someone disposable, someone unguarded. But what they were really tampering with was a divine assignment, a chosen vessel, a soul encoded with spiritual consequence. You were not just defended, you were declared untouchable before you even knew who you were. And when they dared to trespass that sacred space, they didn't just curse you. They signed a contract with consequence, one they can't now erase, reverse, or escape from. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't need to throw spells, light candles, or even speak a word. Your elevation became your retaliation. Your silence became their sentence. And your survival? That became the loudest testimony of all. You walked through fire and didn't even smell like smoke. Meanwhile, they're haunted by the ashes of their own rituals. Their confusion, breakdowns, and spiritual torment are not random. They are the echo of a law they violated, a divine system they underestimated, and a chosen one they never should have touched. You weren't just spared, you were established, and now the same realm they tried to weaponize against you is waging war on them. So stay grounded in who you are. Stay aligned with the source, because your life will continue to expose what they did without you having to utter a single accusation. Heaven fights dirty when it's defending the clean-hearted. You are the evidence. You are the aftermath. You are the divine reply to what they tried to silence. Let that be your peace. Let that be your power. If this message stirred something in your spirit, don't just scroll away. Tap into your power and stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another revelation that speaks directly to your soul. Like this video, if it confirmed what you've been sensing deep down. Drop a comment below. Let me know which part hit you hardest or what you're finally waking up to. Share this with someone who needs the truth. Someone who's been through spiritual warfare and didn't even realize they were a target. This isn't just content. It's confirmation. And your support helps push this truth into the hands of more chosen ones across the world. We're not just building a community. We're building an army of awakened souls. Let's rise together. God bless you.